This is Plant-Based Briefing. Censorship concerns raised regarding the American Veterinary Medical Association's Humane Endings Symposium, and the veterinary profession should not condone killing animals by heat stroke, by Barry Kipperman, DVM at ourhonor.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, and this is the curated content plant-based podcast where I narrate articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And today I'm reading two articles because they're both shorter and fit within the 10-minute time frame. They're both posted at ourhonor.org, one of the dozens of organizations I have permission to read from. They're a nonprofit supporting veterinary professionals embracing their conscience. Our Honor is creating an organized network of professionals who are able to formally challenge unethical institutionalized systems and amplify the voices of those who've been marginalized. They practice nonviolence and believe in forging alliances with industry. They believe everyone who seeks out a career with animals has the desire to protect them from suffering. They're working to create better ways to help and protect the animals we love and achieve the highest levels of compassionate care and transparency. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Censorship concerns raised regarding the American Veterinary Medical Association's Humane Endings Symposium, and the veterinary profession should not condone killing animals by heat stroke, by Barry Kipperman, DVM at ourhonor.org. Censorship concerns raised regarding the American Veterinary Medical Association's Humane Endings Symposium this week in Chicago. The veterinary profession is highly influential in what is considered quote-unquote humane when it comes to animal treatment, but those who criticize agriculture industry practices increasingly face censorship and blacklisting. Several American Veterinary Medical Association, or AVMA, member veterinarians were barred from attending the AVMA Humane Endings Symposium, which just concluded in Chicago. They received emails the week of January 9th informing us that the, quote, AVMA is not able to accommodate all the requests we have received to register for the AVMA's 2023 Humane Endings Symposium, unquote. The AVMA has communicated that it limited conference symposium attendance due to some individuals expressing their views in quote-unquote disruptive ways. While peaceful protests by animal groups have recently occurred at some AVMA conferences, the veterinarians excluded from the Humane Endings Conference expressed their views through avenues such as submitting resolutions to the AVMA in accordance with the association's bylaws and publishing opinion pieces in scholarly journals and well-known newspapers. In support of those who were refused admission to the symposium, the British Veterinary Association journal Vet Record agreed to publish this commentary linked here, which I'll read next, from Dr. Barry Kipperman. The barred veterinarians were working to change the position taken by the AVMA on a method of mass killing farmed animals known as ventilation shutdown plus, or VSD plus. VSD plus involves sealing up pig, chicken, or turkey barns, shutting off ventilation, and pumping in heat and/or steam, causing the animals to die of heat stroke over many hours. It is currently one of the most common methods of killing commercially raised birds when avian influenza or bird flu is detected in the flock. More than 1,500 veterinarians have joined us in condemning the practice. The symposium's top sponsor, Cargill, is the largest agricultural company in the world. It was responsible for Canada's largest single COVID-19 outbreak at one of its slaughterhouses. The Humane Endings Symposium is also sponsored by the pharmaceutical company Charles River Laboratories. In November of 2022, 278 AVMA veterinarians signed a petition to the AVMA House of Delegates asking them to reclassify the mass killing of animals via heat stroke as, quote, not recommended, unquote. Their resolution was not allowed to be heard, and the AVMA, realizing they were on shaky ground for refusing the petition, amended their House of Delegates manual to prevent future petitions. Recently, Raven Deerbrook released 16 hours of footage obtained from inside the gas chambers at the Smithfield Farmer John slaughterhouse in Vernon, California. More than 60 veterinarians have signed on to a statement calling the footage of carbon dioxide stunning at the Farmer John facility a violation of federal law. Eurogroup for Animals is calling for this method to be phased out immediately. The AVMA was accepting comments on their humane slaughter guidelines through 11:59 p.m. January 28, 2023. However, they closed comments early. Ultimately, they reopened comments after complaints. This pattern of exclusion and refusal to communicate is harmful to the advancement of science, animal welfare, and public health, while the AVMA's current positions harm the profession's reputation as caring advocates for animals. The veterinary profession should not condone killing animals by heat stroke. Commentary by Dr. Barry Kipperman in the British Veterinary Association journal Vet Record. Increasing numbers of farm animals are being killed en masse by depopulation in the USA as a result of disease outbreaks and supply chain disruptions. In the past few years, depopulation methods that rely on heat stroke as the mechanism of killing have been used with increasing frequency. Millions of pigs and chickens housed in enclosed barns are being subjected to ventilation shutdown with the application of heat and/or steam, referred to as ventilation shutdown plus or VSD plus, to induce death by heat stroke. For pigs subjected to VSD plus, the heat inside the barn can rise above 74 degrees Celsius or 165 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature at which meat is considered safe to eat, while the animals are still alive. To make matters worse, it takes up to 2.5 hours for the pigs to stop squealing, become silent, and finally, for most of them to die. For chickens and turkeys, it may take 4.5 hours or more, and not all the birds die. The pathophysiology of heat stroke suggests that these animals are likely to suffer and experience pain, anxiety, nausea, heat distress, and breathlessness before loss of consciousness. Unlike in the EU or UK, the USA currently lacks laws regulating depopulation. In 2019, the American Veterinary Medical Association, AVMA, published its guidelines for the depopulation of animals, which classified VSD plus as, quote, permitted in constrained circumstances, unquote, i.e. when circumstances constrain the reasonable implementation of, quote-unquote, preferred methods. Preferred methods for pigs include CO2 gassing, captive bolt, gunshot, and electrocution, and for poultry, these include whole house gassing with CO2 and, for floor-reared confined birds, water-based airway occluding foam. The United States Department of Agriculture, state animal health officials, and farmers decide which methods to use to kill animals during a depopulation episode, using the AVMA's guidelines to inform their decisions. Heat stroke-based methods of killing animals are impermissible in the UK and EU, with more rapid and humane methods of mass killing having been developed, such as whole house gassing with CO2 and high-expansion nitrogen gas-filled foam for poultry, the latter which typically causes loss of consciousness in less than 1 minute without pain or irritation of mucous membranes. However, the USA's egg and poultry industries have little incentive to invest in such approaches, as VSD Plus requires only the rental of large heaters, and farmers using these methods receive taxpayer-funded indemnity compensation. The real problem is that, quote, constrained circumstances, unquote, is so poorly defined and its interpretation so subjective that virtually anything qualifies as a constrained circumstance justifying the use of VSD Plus. I believe that human expediency is being prioritized over animal welfare. Even more concerning is evidence that depopulations, especially those involving healthy animals or that are associated with poor animal welfare, are potent drivers of moral distress, perpetration-induced traumatic stress, burnout, and emotional detachment for participating veterinarians. The veterinary profession is entrusted with an ethical responsibility to protect and advance animal welfare. The AVMA has affirmed that veterinarians should advocate for the welfare of animals, and its animal welfare principles provide guidance about how animals' lives should be ended by veterinarians. Quote, animals shall be treated with respect and dignity throughout their lives and, when necessary, provided a humane death, unquote. Thus, the veterinary profession must remain a strong advocate for optimizing animal welfare, even when death occurs by depopulation. I believe that the AVMA needs to reclassify VSD Plus as an unacceptable method of killing animals under any circumstances, or at the very least as not recommended. I and over 250 colleagues recently petitioned the AVMA to do so, and to lead efforts to eliminate the widespread use of heat stroke-based methods to depopulate animals. The petition was not accepted. Therefore, I'm appealing to and urging the international veterinary community to call on the AVMA to reconsider its sanctioning of heat stroke-based depopulation methods and to promote the development and use of more humane methods of depopulation, such as high-expansion nitrogen-filled foam. You just listened to Censorship Concerns Raised Regarding the American Veterinary Medical Association's Humane Ending Symposium and The Veterinary Profession Should Not Condone Killing Animals by Heat Stroke by Barry Kipperman, DVM, at ourhonor.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. This is so horrific. It's in the news a lot. If you just Google ventilation shutdown or depopulation of animals, you'll find stories about this. And if you're interested, listen to episode 393, The Use of Chickens in Agricultural Research, an eye-opening look at unspeakable cruelty. This is an article about researchers at North Carolina State University a few years ago who received funding from the U.S. Poultry and Egg Association, an industry trade group, to study ventilation shutdown on chickens. It's a pretty eye-opening episode, so please take a listen to that, and I'll put a link in the show notes. And please share this with anyone who might benefit, especially if you have a veterinarian. Share a link to the ourhonor.org website where they can get involved. And thank you for listening.